Situated between Switzerland and Italy is a 60 million year old giant arrow of rock which claims the lives of climbers every year, and its name is the Matterhorn. It's perhaps the most recognisable mountain in the entire world due to its razor-sharp slopes and pyramid-like shape, and for a lot of people, because of the Toblerone packaging. The Matterhorn's attraction, however, goes beyond its physical greatness. It's steeped in mountaineering history. The first successful ascent in 1865 was considered the last ascent in the golden age of alpinism, yet it ended in both triumph and tragedy. Edward Winther and a team of 7 other climbers reached the peak of the Matterhorn, but 4 of them never made it back down. Mountaineering has advanced astronomically since then, and so has the amount of people trying to climb it. It's estimated that 3,000 to 4,000 people attempt to reach its summit each year, with less than half of those being successful, and in the case of over 500 people, never made it home. Whilst the Matterhorn has a much lower death rate than its Asian counterparts, such as Annapurna and K2, it still provides relentless challenges for those who seek to conquer it. To truly understand the danger that the Matterhorn possesses, we need to discuss its location, the altitude, its unique weather, the deadly rockfalls, its popularity, and finally, the climb itself. This is the Matterhorn, Europe's most dangerous mountain. If you've watched my previous videos about K2 and Annapurna, you'll know that the location of the mountain often adds a great amount to its danger. This is usually due to its remoteness, making a potential rescue harder, and also there is a long, dangerous trek towards base camp. The Matterhorn, however, is the total opposite of this. Its location doesn't actually add to the danger of the mountain. In fact, its surroundings make it safer. Most people who seek to climb the Matterhorn will start in Zermatt, a picturesque and car-free town regarded by many as Switzerland's top ski resort. To get there, you simply need to take a 3.5-hour train from Zurich Airport, which has scenic views along the way. Zermatt itself is home to around 6,000 permanent residents, but hosts tens of thousands of tourists each year due to its proximity to the Matterhorn and access to other peaks. It's a hub for hikers and skiers, and even has the nickname Matterhorn Ski Paradise. The town blends old with new and has a great atmosphere, allowing people to settle in days before their ascent. For some people, however, it may increase their anxiety due to not being able to escape the view of the Matterhorn anywhere you turn. The day before the ascent, you would then leave Zermatt, and you have an option of either the highest open-air railway in Europe, the Hörnligrat railway, or a cable cart. From here, you have a roughly 2-hour hike towards the Hörnligrat. This hike is often very busy due to different walking routes crossing over, and also a lot of people go to the base of the Matterhorn with no intention of climbing it. Because of this popularity, there is a lot of permanent infrastructure in place, making this hike very pleasant and safe. And it's also basically impossible to lose your way as you're walking towards the only huge mountain in your view. The Hörnligrat was opened way back in 1880 and had just 17 beds, but it now has 130. It costs 150 Swiss francs per night, which is roughly £130 or $167. That price includes dinner and breakfast, which is fairly good value when you consider its location. I mean, just look at this viewing terrace. Also, because the location is relatively accessible, so are the search teams. Air Zermatt carry out regular rescue missions and are regarded as one of the best aerial search teams in the world. They're a team of salaried paramedics and clinicians, so you can rest easy knowing that if you do have an accident, a very high level of rescue will be on its way. Red Bull have made a fantastic 6-part free-to-watch documentary about Air Zermatt, which I've linked in the description below. So yeah, so far, so good. But I promise it does get harder from this point, especially the climbing route, which we'll come to soon. Standing at 4,478 metres tall, or 14,692 feet, The Matterhorn isn't anywhere near as tall as some of the most deadly mountains in the world, such as K2. It's also not even the tallest mountain in the Swiss Alps. However, its altitude still adds to its difficulty to climb. Altitude sickness can start with a mild form known as acute mountain sickness, but can quickly turn into high-altitude pulmonary edema, which is where your lungs begin to fill up with fluid, or the most severe form, high-altitude cerebral edema, where your brain begins to swell. These conditions can arise when you cross the 2,500 metre level. This is why spending time in Zermatt at 1,608 metres, then a night in the Hörnli hut at 3,260 metres above sea level is critical, as it allows the body to acclimatise to the higher altitudes. A lack of understanding of how the altitude can affect your body can quite easily be fatal, especially on the Matterhorn's most dangerous feature. But before we get into that, we need to discuss the weather. Some of the most famous dangerous mountains in the world, like Mount Everest, are situated in a cluster of other mountains, but the Matterhorn is not, it's isolated. Due to that and its position on the main alpine watershed, it's subject to rapid changes in weather. As the air is pushed up its terrain, it quickly cools, which creates clouds and sometimes its own rain. This is why you can quite often see videos or pictures of a clear day, but there's clouds surrounding the mountain. This can lead to severely reduced visibility, which is why people attempting to climb the Matterhorn always start early to get down early. Climate change is also making the Matterhorn a more treacherous climb. Rising temperatures have meant routes that used to involve climbing on snow and ice now involve hiking on rough rock and dangerous terrain. When the snow melts on the mountain itself, the ground sediments become soggy and wobbly, making for more frequent rockfalls, one of the most deadliest traits of the Matterhorn. Imagine you're climbing up a mountain, you're tired, you're struggling, and you look to the left and you see this. As with any tall mountain, rain seeps into cracks during warmer periods and freezes when it gets colder. When water freezes, it expands, which puts pressure on the surrounding rock. This repeated process gradually widens gaps and then causes chunks of rock to fall off. But the Matterhorn is even more prone to deadly rockfalls. Its shape can be described as a glacial horn, and all four of its faces are steep. These slopes have strong gravitational forces which naturally pulls the loose rock downwards. On top of that, the Matterhorn is mainly comprised of sedimentary rocks, which are less stable and are more prone to fracturing than igneous rocks. When you combine its shape, the type of rock, the rainwater expanding and climate change, you have a recipe for disastrous rockfalls, making the Matterhorn a potentially deadly climb. And there's also one more thing which can cause rockfalls, and that's people. Due to all the factors I've mentioned earlier, such as the nearby village of Zermatt, the cosy Hornli hut at the foot of the mountain, the defined hiking routes and its iconic pyramid shape, the Matterhorn has become a very popular place to visit, which makes it even more dangerous to climb. Somewhere between 3,000 to 4,000 try to reach its summit each year, with only 35% of those being successful. The failures may be due to lack of fitness or poor weather conditions. On a day with optimal conditions, there can be up to 300 people trying to summit the mountain at the same time. The main issue being, most of these people take similar, if not the same route, so they have to pass each other. These climbers are of varying fitness and skill levels, which adds to the complexity of navigating around each other. Oh, and you know I just talked about rockfalls. Climbers above you could set one of those off as well, which just adds to the anxiety whilst climbing. Swiss officials are attempting to reduce the traffic on the mountain by eliminating camping outside the Hornli hut and limiting its capacity. The goal is to cut the number of climbers by as much as a third. Now on to the fun part, how to actually climb the Matterhorn. So as we've already established, we've reached the Hörnli hut on the northeast side of the mountain and have stayed there the night before climbing. This is considered the easiest route, but all 4 sides are possible. And as I've mentioned, the goal is to start early, to be down early, reducing the chance of an unexpected shift in weather. So the climb begins around 4 AM. As a general guide, it may take 4 to 5 hours to ascend and 5 to 6 hours to descend. It begins with a well-marked path, traversing rock and mixed terrain. The lower part of the ridge involves climbing over rocks with occasional fixed ropes in place to assist. Roughly halfway up the climb, at 4,003 metres, is the Solveig hut. This was built in 1917, but it's to be used in emergencies only. From here, the route becomes steeper and more technical. The ridge narrows and there are several exposed sections requiring climbers to navigate with extreme caution. In the upper sections, there are fixed ropes and metal ladders to help people in particularly difficult sections. But don't be fooled into thinking this makes it easy. Remember, you're over 4,000 metres above sea level, you're tired, lightheaded, and you're constantly worried about a rockfall, and you've not even made it to the top yet. The final approach involves steep rocky terrain with significant exposure. But then, you've done it. You've successfully reached the peak of the Matterhorn. At the summit, it really kicks in just how exposed you are, as there isn't a great amount to hold on to, but you're trekked with panoramic views of Switzerland, Italy, and France in the distance. But now the hard part comes, the longer and more challenging descent. You're already tired, you've reached your goal, but now you have to do it all again in reverse. This fatigue is why 80% of mountaineering accidents happen on descent. You have to trust yourself with each step. If you do not, the Matterhorn will not forgive you. With its dramatic pyramid-like silhouette, the Matterhorn pierces the skyline, showcasing its beauty but deadly power. Its steep exposed ridges and frequent rockfall make it a treacherous climb for any who dare to ascend. The Matterhorn will forever be a timeless emblem of the invulnerable spirit of mountaineers. If you enjoyed this video and want to help out the channel, I've recently launched a Patreon. Any support would bring me closer to doing this as my full-time job, so I can make more consistent and higher quality videos, so I really appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one.